Welcome to the AP Statistics instructional video project with the three Kevins. Let's first talk about the shape of a distribution. A distribution can either be unimodal, bimodal, or multimodal, depending on the number of peaks it has. Assuming that we're talking about a unimodal graph, there are three possible shapes that a distribution can have, and the first that we'll be looking at is the symmetric distribution. This is where the data is split nearly evenly between the left and the right sides of the center. We have the right skewed distribution, where we see that there's more data on the left side and we have a tail to the right. And we have a left skewed distribution, where the majority of the data is on the right side of the center and we have a tail to the left. This may be counterintuitive. However, if we look at which side the tail is on, this is an easy way for us to remember which skew the distribution has. Alright, so now that we're done talking about the shape, we can go look at center and central tendency. The mean is the balance point of the distribution. To calculate it, the mean would be sum of all of the numbers divided by the number of numbers, whereas the median is the midpoint of the values. We see that median is called a resistant measure. And the reason for this is that it is less affected by extreme values than the mean is. In a symmetric distribution, we see that the mean equals the median. However, when we start to have skew, we see that the mean is always pulled toward this tail right here. So in a right skewed distribution, the mean will be to the right of the median. And in a left skewed distribution, the mean will be to the left of the median. Now let's go talk about spread. Let's look first at the 5-number summary. So when we're talking about spread, we can use a variety of combinations. For example, we can use the maximum minus the minimum to get the range. We can also talk about the upper quartile minus the median, or the median minus the lower quartile. When we're comparing two different box plots, we can talk about any one of these. Let's turn and have a glance at standard deviation. What standard deviation looks at is the typical distance of our points from a specific value. That can either be our mean, or it can be our predicted value in our residual, shown here. So we see that these have differences, but overall they share this square root portion and the sum of each of the differences squared. When we look at sampling distributions, we're no longer looking at standard deviation. Instead, we're looking at standard error. And the reason for this is that instead of looking at the parent population, instead we're looking at how samples show us what a sampling distribution looks like right here.
So we can actually use our TI-84s to calculate the summary statistics. First, you want to create the data set that we're going to be working with. Go to Stats, and then go to Edit, and then put in the data set. I already have a data set put in there, and you want to remember which list you put it under. We have it under L1 right now. Next, to do the actual summary statistics calculations, go to Stats, then go to Calc, and then go to One Variable Stats. So under One Variable Stats, you want to make sure that the list is set to the one that you put the data under, and you want to press Calculate. This is going to create all the summary statistics that we were talking about before. The X with the line over it is the sample mean. SX is equal to the standard error. And under here, we have all the 5-number summary that we were talking about before.
Lastly, we have the outliers. In order to find these, we use the 1.5 IQR rule. This distance between quarter 3 and quarter 1 that we call the interquartile range, or IQR, and we multiply that by 1.5. Then what we do is add that to either ends, being the maximum and the minimum, the two extremes. Whatever is outside will be called an outlier, and these are represented as stars.
So finally, for some tips and tricks and common mistakes, one common mistake is to forget to find outliers when graphing box plots. So often kids will just draw the lines completely out without trying to find the outliers. Remember to look for the outliers first, and then base your maximum and minimum values based on the maximum and minimum value that isn't an outlier. Second one is forgetting one aspect of comparing distributions. So actually, to solve for that, we recommend that you have an acronym in mind that helps you remember every aspect. Here we have CUS, C for center, U for unusual features, S for spread, and the last S for shape. So to use this on the example to the right, for C, we could talk about how corporation A and B have approximately the same median. For U, we could talk about how corporation A has 2 outliers while corporation B doesn't. For spread, we could talk about how corporation A has a higher IQR in range than corporation B. And for shape, we could talk about how corporation A is slightly skewed to the right while corporation B is slightly skewed to the left. So for future problems, you want to look at 2016 free response question 1. Thank you.